I'm Simone, Airtame's communications and content lead. And today I'm talking to a couple of different colleagues at Airtame. We talked to Simon earlier. I don't have to say that because it doesn't really matter. But now I'm actually talking to Jonas. Jonas is our co-founder. And so obviously you've been with the company since the very beginning in 2013, is that right?
That's right.
It's been a long, long way. It started with an Indiegogo campaign, and we've had a couple of different devices, the Airtame 1, the Airtame 2, Airtame Hub, and now the Airtame 3. But I want to talk less about the devices, because that's Simon's territory, and more about the industry as a whole, because you've been in this space for more than a decade, screen sharing, conferencing, digital signage space. So when you look at schools and offices today, what still surprises you about how people use or maybe struggle with screens?
Yeah, so when I look at like both schools and businesses, actually, I'm surprised first and foremost of the cable. The cable is still there, right? Still surviving for whatever reason. People still rely on a cable for supporting them in many use cases, and it's tying them up, like literally, it's tying them up to the front of the classroom, to the to next to the meeting room screen, and it limits them, right? And when I started 12 years ago, I thought we would be the cable would be done at this point, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is it's still very fragmented. When we look at the screen space, like professional screens as a whole, the way to support, the common use cases, which is, as you say, screen sharing, video conferencing, digital signage, right? It's very fragmented, right? And so as a user, I think there's a lot of worry about how do I connect when I walk into a new room. And there's still a lot of that. That's what we try to combat. But I'm surprised that that's still the case in many businesses and schools.
I think that's an interesting point, the fragmentation, because a lot of solutions, many companies as well, who do the same that we do, or kind of the same, they focus either on an operating system, a device, or a specific app. And why do you think that approach is flawed?
Well, I think it's there in the first place because it's easier to make it simple for a few people, or like in a controlled way. Make it
narrowing
down. Okay, we make it work for these guys, for this platform, right? And then we'll focus on making that super easy. But as soon as anyone else comes in, right, there's a dead end, or it's super super complicated to get up and running, right? And I think that's also the flaw, right? It should support anyone equally, right? So you don't have to worry about using the right device in order to get up and running, or the right video conferencing service, or what have you, right? So I think that's the flawed approach that many solutions out there, they leave some platforms, some services out in the cold, and that's hurting just getting started with your meeting or your class.
So it's actually creating a lot of silos. So if you can't get your screen up and running, it's harder to share information.
Yeah.
And that's creating silos, it's excluding people, and also maybe put some of the tech in the spotlight instead of the humans. Maybe we should talk about tech that fades into the background for a little bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's very much what we try to do, because when we work the best, you don't think about us, right? You just think about what you're supposed to do, which is teach a class, have a meeting, right? Get started with your collaboration or what have you, right? So we really want to enable the room, any room for anyone with technology that disappears, right? That fades into the background, as you say, right? Because that's when we are at our best. Just like we had a customer that said, and I love this, that's probably my favorite quote, right? We had a customer that said, Airtame is like flipping on the light switch and suspecting that the light comes on, right? So, and I think that's when it works the best, and that's when we work at our best. So I think we fade in the background, and then we are noticed because we fade in the background in some paradoxical way, because that's not the case in many rooms today.
Yeah, no, I really love that analogy of the lights, the light switch that flicks on as well, because you notice it if it doesn't work. If the room stays dark, you have a problem. If your noise cancellation headphones, they don't cancel out the noise, it's going to be very hard to do your work.
Phone or whatever.
Exactly. And so if the hardware or the thing that you have, the device, or it could be a cable, whatever it has, if it doesn't work, you can't share the information in the way that you're supposed to do. And then it hinders you in doing what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, and take advantage of the potential that is screens, right? There's a lot of untapped potential still in using these, large surfaces that we right now call screens or projectors, right? It's a great medium to align and to share information and to connect with one another, right? We cannot just project ideas directly into another person's brain, right? So we need this medium as a way to get on the same page, right? And the more we can reduce that barrier, the more you can tap into what those screens can actually bring.
Yeah, and level the playing field by making it available or accessible to any sort of person, their technical background, their OS, the device that they bring, or whatever they come with. Yeah. We can support them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You're talking about untapped potential. What are you seeing out there that people are not using their screens for, that they could be using it for? Now, we talked a little bit about video conferencing. So there's a screen sitting there in a meeting room and you use it for conferencing. What else is out there?
Yeah, so let's take conferencing first, right? So if, many rooms, they support one of them really good, right? And when you standardize on one video conferencing service, it's easy to walk into a room if you have invited the room to get up and running, right? You have the in-room tablet. You just tap the little start button exactly as a room system, and you get started, right? But we know that majority of organizations in the world, they have an average of 4 conferencing systems that they use
right? At the same time.
At the same time, yeah, not equally, of course, right? But it's because you can maybe standardize or try to standardize within your organization, but then you have customers, you have partners, you have investors, substitute teachers, exactly. Other preferences that is, that comes into the, to the equation and into the room, right? And you need to support that. So as soon as you have a room that only supports one of them, maybe 2 of them, and there's another call happening, you're confined to your own device, which is not great. It's not a great experience for the in-room participants and for the remote participants. So it hinders, the meeting and the collaboration to actually get going and get good enough quality, right? We also know this from since the pandemic, having more calls than before the pandemic. There's Zoom fatigue and Teams fatigue and stuff like that, and that gets even worse if you have a shitty connection and low quality when it comes to video and audio, and you cannot see all the participants, right? So you don't see the body language and the reactions and all these things, right? So you need to, as you say, level the playing field, and that goes across any system.
We also talk a lot about we want, or maybe that's just something we've internally talked about a lot, that we want Airtame to be the enabler. We want to be the enabler of what? Of focus, or what is it that we want to do?
Yeah, we want to, the way we think about it a little, philosophically or abstractly is we want to be the enabler for the room to flow, the classroom to flow, the meeting to flow.
Explain that, the flow state.
So the flow state, I think many people know, get in the flow or in the zone, right? It was coined by this guy, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, hopefully I say that correctly, that talked about and researched on how to get into a flow state, which is a mental state, right? Where you get absorbed in your work, takes some time. You need to make sure that the challenge and your skill set are matched. And then you lose track of time and, distractions are removed. You get absorbed in your work, right? And it's a very happy place to be. Surgeons and tennis players and all kinds of people, they find a lot of meaning in being in that state. And that's for an individual, right? But then some researchers out of the Netherlands also did some studies on how could this come into play in groups, actually, of people. And of course, that's more difficult. You have more stakeholders, right? But I think it's possible. I think a lot of us know from experience that we have been in a meeting or in a classroom where everything was kind of flowing. The communication was flowing, the collaboration, the technology could empower people to share their ideas and get on the same page and make decisions and educate and whatnot. And that's what we want to bring to the room. And I kind of think like headphones, what headphones does for an individual flow state, we want to be the headphone for the room. So we limit the distractions and we focus the attention. So that's when we are at our best and we enable that group flow state.
That's a really good point. What do you think the industry or maybe the space that our customers are in would look like if more people adopt this way of thinking?
Yeah, that way of thinking, the technology that requires you to basically get started. I think it's that. I'm not a patient guy. I think there are many people out there like me, and this is not about Airtame or any other kind of technology. This is about the meeting that's supposed to start on time, or the class that is supposed to start on time. People just want to get started without friction, right? Mm-hmm. So, and all of us, I've been in this industry and with Airtame for 12 years, and without exception, anyone has been in a meeting that took 10, 15 minutes or even longer to get started, right? Or a class setting or a substitute teacher coming in, not able to connect and use the in-room technology and, try to, teach a class with 20, 30 kids and then not being able to get up and running and simply, share your screen or whatever, right? So removing all of that friction, as you say, and just get started with what it's about. It's the meeting, it's the class.
Yeah, I think sometimes when I think on my path at Airtame as well, I've worked here before, now I came back. One of the things that I love about the product is that how diverse it is, and maybe that's also why the culture at Airtame has this sort of like diversity feel, because we're talking about less friction, more universal standards, screens as natural extensions of work, fewer barriers. And I think that really translates to the people that work with the product and in turn also with the product. Like we're trying to not make it so much about the features and more about the function.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We take pride in not being a feature factory.
What's a feature factory?
So a feature factory is, in my perspective, an organization that tries to outcompete the competition by having more features, right? Trying to
add-ons.
Just add on, trying to win public tenders as well by, again, checking all the boxes. And of course, you need to check some boxes, right? But in Airtame, we've always been about optimizing for the usage and the user, the end user, whether that's an employee, a teacher, an IT manager, or what have you. That's what it's about. Right. So, yes, some features are required to get past, the decision maker or the, be compliant to the public tender, what have you. But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is to be used and, dependably used and being actually loved in the room. Right. So that's what we have optimized for. And that's why we take pride in calling ourselves an experience factory over a feature factory. So it's basically quality over quantity.
Right. So that's one of the ways that we differentiate ourselves from competitors. Are there any other ways that you think that we stand out? So we talked about the just adding too many features that might not actually be used by the end user.
Yeah.
What else? I mean, we're also kind of keeping it super open to partners, and also we don't say that you have to use the hardware that you have. So there's nothing you can throw away, and then you're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
So maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yes, we want the Airtame experience to be enabled easily. So with
Enabler
Airtame 3,
again, yeah.
Enable, right? So with Airtame 3, you can enable all the displays, projectors, not capable of running the software. But for all the new equipment, touch displays and video bars and whatnot, which supports an Android or Windows application, you could just enable the Airtame experience with software. And you can also prolong the lifetime of the hardware that you already have and you have already installed it, right? So you don't have to rip something out and add the Airtame device. Or you can do a mix, which is also many customers, they choose that, right? They have a mixed fleet of brands and newer and older screens, so they can retrofit all of the spaces and then unify the experience across any room, right? And that's where we are at our best. We also take pride in being different. It's a big space. We play with big players. That's also an advantage. It's also a challenge because we're up against some behemoths in the game with big ecosystems that also push a certain agenda. Like, you should standardize on our stuff, right? Because you get everything and then you control the experience, closed off, right? And you can ensure a good experience if you stay within, those boundaries, right? And so we're different by saying, look, it's more complicated and it's much more work and maintenance to support everyone equally. But that's how we want to be different. And we want to, take on that work to level the playing field, even though that is more work. So that's one example. Another example is how we approach conferencing. Our approach is unique in the market, but it's not unique in the world. Like, it's a known thing, and we know it from the home, where there are like solutions out there where you can use your own device as a remote control to control another piece of hardware. That can be a television, or it can be a speaker at home. So you basically just like choose over, on your phone, and then something plays on the other side, right, wirelessly. So we know that concept. That's basically what we have brought to the video conferencing space. Use your own device. You can start any call, but it runs on the screen, right? So, and that took some courage, and it was a bet in the beginning, like in 2018 when we started this project, like trying to do something different. Because one thing is having a good solution that is different. Another thing is making people aware that exists and why it's different and why it's sometimes better, right? And that has taken some time.
We talk a lot about putting people before screens. That's kind of an unofficial motto. Can you maybe elaborate on why we've chosen that?
Yeah, I think we've been trying to iterate and brainstorm on how could we condense what we do and what we stand for into something short and maybe memorable. And I like the double meaning, of course. It's about the people more than the screens. The screens is a medium to connect people, right? Humans, right? So it's they should enable, the screens should enable the collaboration, the communication, the teaching, all these things. And the technology should fade in the background. So it's about people first. It's also about getting people up and running and optimized for real people using it every day, not only the decision maker about rolling this stuff out, right? And of course, we literally want to put people in front of screens, right?
Physically.
Or before physically, right? In the room. So you can, you're untethered from your, front of classroom setting, right? You can move around, you can, with your own device, and it can be a more dynamic, classroom, for example, right? So that's why I like, that statement.
So what I'm hearing you say, if we were to sum up the Airtame experience, we land on simplicity, inclusivity, untethered, and flow. Is there any one word that you would say that Airtame really stands for?
It's difficult to boil everything down to like one word without, being corny, fluffy, or cheesy, I think. But I can flip it around, and I can look at when I'm the most proud of what we do. It's when people go, it just works, right? And
they say that.
And they say that, right? They haven't always said that. 12 years ago, 10 years ago, they didn't say that. It never works, right? Or it sometimes-ish works, or what have you, right? But at this point, we get it just works. And I'll rather have that the it part is, again, less features, but it's high quality and it's dependable and it's inclusive, right? So it just works for everyone, for every device, for any service, right? So I'm super proud when we hear feedback like that. Back to the light switch and expecting light to come on, right? It's that type of feedback that I really love, because it's easy to come out and say it's simplicity, it's ease of use and all these things. I'll rather have that customers make that conclusion by themselves.
Yeah.
But we really tried to make it as easy as possible.
So one customer also said it's brilliantly simple, which is something I was like, as a marketing person, I was like, this is gold.
Yeah.
How many times can I use it? I love it. It's brilliantly simple.
Yeah.
But again, what you said, it comes back to it, and it not being a box, a device, a solution, something you have to worry about. You just have to think about it. And
That's
it
right.
just works.
Exactly.
So I think that's a nice conclusion to our talk. Thank you so much for sitting down with me. This is going to be the first time of many, I hope. But thanks for your thoughts and your insights and all of the work that you put into it.
Thanks, Simone.